Moving on to your business questions now. First up, delving into the real estate market.
My question is, if you have to look for a location for your business, what would be better, to find one that you could purchase or leasing a location for your small company?
Ken?
I think that it depends greatly on what location you're choosing, what your financial situation is. I think early on, in most instances, it's probably best to lease, particularly if you're a relatively new business. Owning real estate is a great way to wealth in addition to the business. So when cash flow allows it, I think purchasing makes sense.
I just had this conversation with a friend of mine who's going through this question right now, and the advice that someone gave him is, do you want to be in the real estate business? And when you're buying something, you're getting into another business.
It's an investment. It's an investment in a business. And so you have to know, am I getting a really wonderful investment here? Am I getting it at a really good price? You got to make those decisions. But having said that, sometimes entrepreneurs find out that the best investment they made in their business was the building they bought. It's the only thing left after they go down.
Yeah, forget entrepreneurs, a lot of big companies too, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah. It's the only thing that really has any real value. So I know there are really good advisors who suggest you do buy the building, but I think what Ken is saying is true. You really, cash flow is king when you're starting up. Really watch your cash flow. And right now in this real estate market, you can usually get a better deal renting than you can on a mortgage. Real estate's pretty up there.
Probably true in most markets. The other side, are you going to invest in real estate, or are you going to invest in your own business?
Yeah.
Right.
And lots of times, as you say, capital's king, and you need it to expand and
Run the
grow.
numbers.
Rather than to buy that.
Let's move on to our emails now. This one comes from Lindsay Cost, and she asks, I would like to be a small business owner, but I don't want to start a company. Where can I find a company to buy, and how do I evaluate if it's a good company? She'd like to skip the startup phase.
Yeah. Jump right in there. Well, there's obviously, you Google broker and business, and you're going to get a million things. So the real key thing is the evaluation process. What are you going to go through to make sure you're getting a good business? And that's where these numbers come in. It's where you have to know some language of business. The other thing is, what I would suggest people do is draw 3 circles. In the first one, put talent. In the second one, put passion. And in the third one, put money. And make a list in each one of those circles about what you're talented at, what you're passionate about, where do you spend your money, and try to find something that's in all 3 as an industry to get started in if you're looking to buy something.
Terrific advice. And I think you really need to get behind the numbers. When you're buying a business, you really need to spend the time. You need to talk to accountants. You need to have some other people take a look at those books to make sure that the valuation that is there,
as we both know,
entrepreneurs have a nasty tendency of throwing the kitchen sink into their books and deducting everything, which is probably smart, but it ends up making some ugly looking accounting books.
Right.
You've got to be able to parse out the stuff that's not really your expenses from what is. And can I add one more thing?
Of course.
Most of the time when you're looking at books from a small business, they have forgotten to include themselves as an expense. The entrepreneur doesn't put his management cost in there. And so really your net profit is much lower than you'd think.
So take a good look at that.
And you don't want to buy it based on emotion. You got to buy it based on
That's something to always keep in
numbers.
mind in all your decisions. Okay, this next email comes from Bob Hutch, and he writes in asking for some advice on how to go about finding a graphic designer for his upcoming company. He says, I have some ideas for clothing logos, but I'm not good at drawing, but I'm reluctant to ask somebody to draw out my logo for printing for fear of them stealing my logos because they are very unique ideas. Do you have them sign a non-disclosure agreement? Is there anything you can do? Do you just...
Yeah,
you guys are saying just hire someone?
First off, I'm worried about the question a little bit, because if you're focused on what your logo looks like, you might be focused on something that's not the highest priority of starting a new business.
And certainly you can get an NDA, you can have an attorney look at a document or create a document that's going to protect that.
Sure.
But it's only as good as your ability to litigate whatever's there. And I think that when you're choosing, you really need to spend time not just on the quality of the graphic designer and their ability to draw and interpret your ideas, but how you trust and what kind of feelings you have, what kind of experience they have. You can get references. There's a lot of things. I wouldn't throw the legal document out. You certainly want to get it. They need to know you're serious. But at the end of the
that's not
day, you
gonna
don't want to
save you.
hang your hat on that.
You know what? Google RISD grad student. You know, Rhode Island School of Design. They got all these kids that come out of there and can't get jobs. They want to design stuff, and they'll crank out. If you've got a sketch of a logo, they can crank one out for $150.
Right. And then, to your point, just make sure you trust them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This next one comes from Luann Whitlow, and she has a question about patenting her new product. She says, if there's a similar product but different in some ways than your invention, can you still patent and market your idea? How close can it be to something that's already out there?
You know, it's amazing. The patent law isn't, of course, my experience. In fact, I've got an attorney that looks at all this stuff for me, and that's the first thing I would recommend is spend the $500 if you think you've got something to
get a
patent.
lawyer.
Yeah, because, boy, that is a whole world all of its own. I don't think you should make that decision on your own.
I agree with that completely, and you only need to look in the market and see products that are out there that are so close to one another, and yet they've made it through those processes successfully.
Somehow.
So I don't think you want to make the decision on your own, as Phil says. You really want to spend the time and invest. A good opportunity to grab a SCORE volunteer and have them take a look and see what their thoughts are on that ability.
What you don't want to do is start a whole company and then end up in a lawsuit that ruins your company.
Oh, don't be dumb. That would be so
let's
bad.
move on to the last one here. Finally, this comes from Carlos Rodriguez, and he wants to know, how can an independent business person find out how to buy their products wholesale? This guy had been buying them retail and then reselling them.
Oh.
I think you need to look at the type of product that you have. You do a little research in your market, find companies that can do that. With your tax ID number, you can go in and buy wholesale. I don't think it's that big a deal, and there aren't any barriers I'm aware of.
Yeah, done. Get a
Pretty
SCORE
easy.
volunteer, they'll show you.
Sure.
It all comes back to you, Ken.
Good job, Phil.
Great, guys. Do you have a small business question that you need help with? Well, if you do, here's your chance to have our experts give you some answers. Just address an email to yourbusiness@msnbc.com. Now, while I still have you guys here on the desk with me, I want to get your small business secret. So let's start with you, Ken.
Hey, I think if you're going to start, or as you're moving your business, you really need to make sure that you properly estimate the capital that it's going to require, and make sure, as Phil said a little bit earlier, you count yourself as and your salary as one of those expenses. I think that often people fail because they really don't estimate what it's going to cost them to get moving and get going as well as they should. So I think that's something that's worth spending a little more time on.
Really run your numbers.
Really run your numbers.
And Phil?
Okay, from the Oracle of Phil, here we go. I think you must be passionate about what you're going to go after. It is going to be a tough road, and you've got to love the road that you're on. It's so much about the journey as an entrepreneur, as opposed to, you want to get rich or something. You've got to love the journey because it's going to be a tough journey. So be passionate about what you like.
This is a good combination, right? Because it has passion
and
versus
the money.
running the numbers. Perfect.
There it is.
Thanks so much, you guys.